Well, I'm going live this morning, about a minute early. It looks like I'm an old radio DJ from way back, so I like to get on time and not be late. So I'm gonna try to be on time when I start up the live stream. Now I've got to try to get a few things going here in the background. As you see my title, the hard rain and wind finally has gotten here. We got some. I'm getting a couple of notifications and everything. Let me see what I got. I can close out on my notifications. That's always what pops up one time when you get started right away. Sometimes you'll start getting notifications on these computers. I'm trying to have my chat and everything available on my iPad along with I'm using a MacBook Air, which seems to have a pretty good camera and a real good signal. So I like my MacBook. Eating my little fiber bar here too. If you don't mind my eating a morning breakfast snack. I'll try not to eat too much in front of you. But we're finally getting some of the hard rain from the storms. We've had some of the hardest rain that we've experienced during this storm. Although it's not as bad. I mean, we've had a good bit of rain for the past 3 days, I guess, but it's been steady for us. So it's not been downpours like some people have experienced. Let me try to get this. I like to get the camera as best I can so I don't go up and down on the light problem with the camera. Have my little Diet Mountain Dew to start me off here. And hopefully everybody's having a good morning this morning. We're, like I said, we're experiencing a lot more rain this morning than we have, I think, and wind than we've had during all the storms so far. You can see some trees in the background a little bit. They're blowing a little bit. They're not too awfully bad. Looked a little more violent down toward my house than it does here. I'm over here at the new Napa store. We've been able to get a good bit of work done. My wife and I, and my son, he came over to help too last night. We worked over here till about 10 o'clock last night, getting the rest of the pegboard all the way up around the outside perimeter. Now you'll still see the pink up there. Before long, hopefully we're going to have some corrugated metal up there. Some of the gray corrugated metal like I got on the outside of my building. We decided that would give the industrial type look that we wanted and, try to, maintain. I mean, it's a Napa store, so we're going to try to maintain the look of a Napa store other than, it's not a boutique. It is a store that sells a lot of equipment. We sell, parts for trucks, cars, whatever. And we feel like we're doing a pretty good thing with it. We've gotten the desk out a little bit further out into the perimeter, and we're kind of doing like an Apple store a little bit. We're trying to get away from the old traditional, got books and everything else out there, and you can't see anybody, and people kind of hide behind the counter. We're getting away from that kind of thing. Napa wants to get away from that also. So you get a little bit more friendlier atmosphere when you come into the store, hopefully. That's the appearance of it. And I like it. I like it a lot because I was not too fond of the way the old traditional store looked because it made it look lazy looking to me, and I don't want it to look lazy looking. I want the store to pop. I want the customer when they come in that they feel like that they're going to be waiting on immediately, and we're going to try to solve their problem. We're there for problem solving. We're not there for social events. That's what this store is all about. Is when you come into the store that we have the product that you want, and we can solve your problem. And if we have the technology, the equipment, and all the supplies that are required of that, I think we've done our job right. So hopefully that's the appearance that we're going to show in this new Napa store. And they do all the studies. I don't have to do the studies. Napa is a very smart company. They can research all the available registrations in the area. They can tell me what kind of cars probably should be coming in to be worked on. So that in itself is a very smart thing. But let's get back to some other topics too. I said, the weather is being a big topic. The weather seems to, well, at least in North Carolina, it's a huge topic because we've got that stalled system out on the coast, and it's pounding the coast right now. I've noticed on the TV and everything else, I-95 is closed in several sections on the eastern part of North Carolina, and parts of South Carolina too have got I-95 closed on the low areas. The parts from Fayetteville up back up toward Benson, I think, are closed. Probably about probably a 50 or 60 mile stretch up through there on I-95. So that's a major thoroughfare going from the north to the south. So, truckers being diverted and cars and everything else, that's going to be a major, major headache right there, getting north-south freight if you're in the freight business. So that in itself is going to be tough. I-77 is, I think, in pretty good shape. And I-26, they've got it back functional now. So it's back. Most of them last week, they had it in reverse order. So everything coming back out. And I hope they don't reverse it back. They have done that in years past, but I hope they don't reverse it back and just make it one lane going back into Charleston, or at least the entire way they don't. But it will be heavy. People trying to get back to their homes. I-26 and I-95, all those, and even, hey, Mechanic Mike, yeah, we're over here in North Carolina. The storm's actually coming through my part of the state. I'm 37 miles west of Charlotte. I'm between the towns of Lincoln and Shelby, the major towns. But I'm actually, and I'll give you my old joke I tell everybody. People, when they hear my southern accent, they ask me, where am I from? Well, I'm actually between Dallas and Waco. On the western side, we have Waco, North Carolina, which is about 3 miles this way, and then Dallas, North Carolina, which is about 10 miles the other way. And you can look it up on the map. I'm not just making that up. But with my old southern accent, a lot of people say, oh, where are you from? Texas? And I say, yeah, I'm right between Dallas and Waco, North Carolina. So that's the running joke that I can tell everybody, because it's the truth. It's the truth. Let me see if I can get this screen from keeping it's flashing back and forth. But the weather's changed a little bit for the worse here in Cherryville, and it's not bad. I mean, it's a heavy storm. I told my wife, I said, the good thing about it is I can check out the roof of my building here, which I've been periodically changing. When I took over, when I bought the building, it had just a couple of small leaks. It's a metal roof, and we put extensive money into the roof. We went in and did it had a rusty metal type, and we went in and had all the rust removed. Well, what we did, we got an emulsion to go on it, and it stabilizes everything. The metal is this real thick metal, big, heavy, thick industrial metal. So the roof's good. Skylights, we had a couple of problems with a couple of skylights. Somebody had replaced some in a few years ago and did the lapping wrong. So if anybody knows, when you're coming down on a tin roof or anything, that you overlap, like that. Well, some fool did one like that on a skylight. So what does that do? It doesn't matter how much goop or whatever you put in between there and there, it's going to seep in underneath that, the piece that's lapped wrong. So what we had to do is go back and put an additional piece of metal, find the right corrugated metal and everything, and put an additional piece of metal back over the skylight. And then I used that flex seal to seal up around it. And I want to tell you guys, you see the commercial with the guy in the boat and everything else about the flex seal. It's expensive, but darn it, if that stuff does not work, I'm not getting paid to say that. I'm just telling you as a person, if you ever want to get a hole stopped, get some of that flex seal, because I bought a gallon of it, and it was well worth the $90 that I had to spend on that gallon of flex seal. Now that's expensive. Now they got it in smaller containers too. I think they got it in quarts, and they got it in tubes and everything. But if you've got some cracks or in metal, or gosh, they show it going on everything. That, I don't know what the formula is, but that is it's gooey. It's really gooey, but it does its job. Yeah, the wind's been a factor. I mean, that's been the one of the big detrimental things for the area is the wind's been blowing a lot of trees down, and we're in the combination type situation. The ground's getting saturated so much that we're getting natural toppling of trees, and then it doesn't take much wind if you've got all these root systems oversaturated, and that's what we're getting. You got that big. Here we are at the end of the summer, so we still have these trees that are still green as everything. They haven't started dropping their leaves, and the canopy of the tree is so saturated with water and everything else that it's toppling trees. I mean, I'm seeing, of course, I'm seeing pine trees. That's deciduous. And this, I think I'm saying that right. That's the pine tree is not deciduous. The pine tree is evergreen. What am I saying? I got it backwards. But anyway, a lot of pine trees are falling. We got a lot of pine trees in the state of North Carolina. Of course, that's our state tree, as a pine, longleaf pine. And we've seen a lot of those that have fallen across power lines, and you know how tall a big pine tree will get anyway. So I've seen a lot of film and a lot of people posting things on Facebook and friends in different places showing things that have happened, and we're seeing a lot of that with these big old pine trees just toppling too, because I think that has more to do with a little bit of wind and the root system. But a lot of these big old oaks too, I've seen some of those, and I had that to happen at my house earlier this week. Yeah. Well, I guess if they could have got out there after the iceberg hit it, they could have fixed it. JC, are you on the road, JC? I noticed you said you were going to leave out this morning, because it's coming your way. If you're not, it's the rain and the wind is more violent for me this morning than it's been during this entire storm. We've got more windy conditions, and it's headed your way. So I hope you're getting out of Tennessee before it gets too bad over there, because I imagine you're getting into some of the rain. Some of the outer bands I've noticed on the radar is getting over toward Pigeon Forge and Newport and Knoxville and everything else. It hadn't gone up 75 yet, but it'll be going up 75 before long. Yeah, I guess they should have had that flex seal for the Titanic. I hadn't thought about that. It had it been invented in 1902, I guess maybe they could have got out there and done something with it. JC's a character. Now JC, and you probably could have fixed the Titanic. That's the thing about it. JC, for those of you who don't know it, you'll see him on there. JC Smith Projects. Anybody that wants to see somebody that's really good at taking cars and trucks, well, mainly trucks, you'll see him taking Ford trucks apart. It's the primary thing he does. He sells a lot of Ford trucks, and he will take a bed off one and a cab off one and swap them around. he can take 2 or 3 trucks that most people, if you look at it, the average guy will go, well, like that truck's junk or this or that. But he looks at the good parts of all these different ones, and because has done so much of it, he can take doors and cabs and interiors and everything. You ought to see some of his sites that he's done. He's really done a lot. So anybody, I suggest going over to see J.C. Smith projects. If you've never been over you've never ventured over to see his sites, go do it, because it's enlightening. JC's a very intelligent young man that works hard. He's been on vacation at Pigeon Forge. Oh, you left at 7. Okay, well, that's good. So if you left at 7, then Pigeon Forge, so you aren't into Kentucky then. Should be. You should be up there. I'm trying to think. What are some of those small towns? You should be. You've already gone over. Gosh, what's the big hill? I'm not. I'll start to say Saluda, but it's not. You've already passed Caryville, Tennessee, and all that. If you left at 7, I would imagine. You probably either have just climbed the mountain, the good mountain, or because it'll take you from Pigeon Forge over to. Probably took you 45 minutes to an hour to get from Pigeon Forge over to Knoxville, and then from Knoxville up to Caryville. So you're probably just crossing over the mountain right now, or just right past it. Just getting into Kentucky, I would imagine. I hope you have a good, safe drive back. Hope the good Dodge. If you've made it that far and you pulled the hill, then you'll know if the Dodge is going to make it good. JC put his injectors in his Dodge Dooley coming down, and he had a couple little issues with it. But JC's a smart mechanic. He's already discussed what he would or wouldn't do on that. But I think he's pulling about a 35-foot fifth wheel camper back. Him and his wife and his daughter and his 2 boxer dogs. So that's what they're doing. But yeah, if you ever want to, if you're anybody out here, if you want to see a good rebuilder, go to JC Smith's channel. And of course, he's been relaxing this. I've been fighting a storm all week. JC's been taking it easy. Yeah, he sees the forest for the trees. But this morning, like I said, we're fighting more of a storm this morning. You can't. I turned it so you can see the trees. If it does get violent back behind me, it's not too bad. You can see. I can see in the distance some of the treetops that are blowing a little bit, but not too awfully bad. But the storm is coming up on the western part a little bit more. We're not like the eastern part of the state. The eastern part of the state, I know y'all have seen the reports too. In some areas up to 30 inches of rain, and we're getting to Corbin. Okay, I know exactly where you're at up there, Corbin. So that means you're just inside the state of Kentucky, just a few miles. If you're coming up on Corbin, so you'll have to go into Lexington, and you can stop in up there and see Junkie at Cincinnati when you go through. I know he's probably up there washing trucks and sweating away this morning. But the trucking business has been inundated up here on the East Coast this week. For everybody in the trucking business, we've had to do a lot of diversion of routes. All my routes going south into Savannah, and then toward the end of the week, my routes going toward Raleigh and Lumberton and those areas, and Wilmington and all that have been diverted. So we've had to delay that. They're wanting to start some stuff back up. Now, I have a dedicated Lumberton run, and I don't think we're going to be able to run it much at all this week because of the fact that the Lumbee River is overflowing. And I know that those warehouses down there, this warehouse that we have is right off 95. And 40-foot. Okay, I didn't realize it was a 40-foot trailer. Gosh, that is 18,000 pounds. Okay. I didn't realize that was, I thought it's 35 foot, 40 foot. Gosh, that is a big, he's got a big camper. he pulls it back in style. he's got it. He's taking his home away from home when he goes like that. Yeah, that. So you had to get a pretty good size area. You had to. I guess you probably had to pre-register to get that one in, didn't you? Because that had a lot of those spots that when you get a camping site, they're set up for, the more or less the 28, 30 foot campers. And so I would imagine you had to pre-register that and tell them you had one that big. That and a Dooley, you stuck out 60 foot. I guess you had to park it and set it beside it. But yeah, if you've already pulled the mountain, you're already over in Corbin, you've tested out the Dooley. The Dooley's pulling okay. I guess it didn't overheat or anything. Early in the week, I think he had an air pocket or something. He said it had shot up there, but he's got the Cummins diesel in that Dooley. I think it's an 11 Dodge 2011 Dodge Dooley with the Cummins engine. I've got one similar. I got a 2012. Like mine a lot too. It's a good utility vehicle. They're not as plush. They're not as nice as some of the other trucks, I would say. They're more of I use mine as a utility vehicle to I haul transmissions back and forth to places. I mean, I know if I put a big transmission on the back that it's not going to squat the truck down. There's nothing worse. I'll see guys load up a heavy 10-speed transmission on the back of a service truck or something else, and you'll see them squatted down and they're going down the road like that. And that's the good thing about having a good suspension under one of these things. And they do have a good suspension, with the Dooley. And a lot of times, we've had to pull trucks off, and I can pull a truck off with a Dooley, and it doesn't. You get a single wheel tire truck pickup or something like that. It's hard to pull off something. You get a Dooley that's got a little bit of weight back there, and you can pull a vehicle off. You can pull a tractor or a big truck, if you air it up and everything. So we've had situations like that. We've had to do that. I had a driver a few years ago and I was in my service, my head mechanic. He also has a Dodge. His is 4-wheel drive. Mine's not. But we ran up to West Virginia, and one of my drivers, I didn't know it until I got up there, but thank goodness we had taken Larry's 4-wheel drive Dooley. He'd pulled off the road, and it was wet. Of course, he'd pulled off the side of the road. He had a issue. It really wasn't a major issue, but he made it into a major issue because when he pulled off the side of the road, then he almost got stuck. So we had to, he had just a single trailer, I think it was. But we had to kind of dig it out a little bit and get that Dodge Dooley and hook a chain and everything to it, and then pull it out of this grass and gravel that it was in, and it was on the side of a road, and it was slanted pretty bad. And he had been in there trying to dig it in and out because he thought he knew what he was doing, and he was doing nothing but digging a bigger ditch. And he about had it down on the fuel tanks. That's how far he had dug into the gravel and grass. And once you get one all the way down to the fuel tanks, then you're stuck. And that's what he had done. So luckily we hooked the chain and everything to it with Larry's Dodge Dooley. We were able to pull that tractor trailer out. I mean, thank goodness it wasn't up a hill. It's sort of on a slant down and everything. It wasn't bad, but I mean, it took some doing. I mean, it took some work from me and Larry both. I was in the truck and Larry was in his Dooley, and it took us a while tugging back and forth, but we got it going. Yeah. But, like I said, it's a lot of people will say, the Cummins is stout, and it's got a lot of low end torque, is what I like about a Cummins engine. You get some of the power strokes, and I got a GMC uh, I got a GMC service truck that has I guess it's Duramax engine in it. It's an older one. Yeah, you drive the Cummins in a crappy shipping crate. Yeah. Well, like I said, I didn't compliment the truck as much. The drivetrain's good. The drivetrain's good. I like the drivetrain, and what the utility version of it uh, is what's so good about a Dodge, and that's about as much as you want to say about it. I mean, of course, I come from driving older pickups that were way worse than that when I was young, so it's still luxurious for some of the things I drove with my pop. My dad's what did we have? We had a '37 Chevrolet. Uh, I wish I still had it though. Dad had a '37 Chevrolet pickup, and he had a. Um, hey, Chris, how are you this morning? Bottle feeding the calves. I hope that means milking cows, not caking them. I don't know how you cake a cow, but I hope that's bottle feeding the calves and milking cows. You're late getting in here, are you? You've had to double check. Your spell check got ahead of you, and it thinks you caked a cow. And unless you got a new way of making cakes, I don't know how you do that. But I hope you get a kick out of that, Chris. But yeah, I would hate to be out milking cows this morning. Yeah, that's the alfalfa. Okay. Yeah, that's the only cake they got is that alfalfa. Yeah. Now, I hope you got a lot of hay baled up and everything out there. I think they've had some dry seasons out there. Of course, in the Midwest, always seems to be a little bit drier, so you'll have to make sure and get your hay supply ready for this winter. You don't want to waste your good alfalfa right now. Let them, if they can graze, let them graze. That's what Dad always used to do. We hoarded that hay. Oh, you've had record rain. Well, that's good. Then you ought to have a good hay crop. So get all that hay packed in there pretty good. So when the snow hits, you'll have plenty of alfalfa to feed them. I know I've watched Chucky 2009's hay baling adventures. Of course, I don't think he's there. I don't know if the boy's baled more than 10 bales of hay in the past 2 years. He seems to tear up more equipment than he does bale hay. Yeah, I know it. Yeah, harvest time for that should be kicking in pretty good. I remember doing that myself. I did that as a we used to bale hay, and then of course we had a neighbor farmer that I used to help when I was a teenager. When I was 13, 14 years old, that was one of the first jobs I had. I used to help J.C. Rudersel bale hay, and it it'll do some work on you. And back then, gosh, I hate to think of what I was making. The main thing was his mother was a real good cook, and he would feed us, and we'd go in and eat lunch at him and his mother's house, and she'd put on the spread for us boys. There'd be 4 or 5 of us boys that around the community that would come in and help JC, and he'd pay us. I don't know, what was I making? Probably 50 cents an hour, maybe 60 cents. Wasn't much. By the end of the day, you'd make, $4 or $5. But this is in 1960. What year would that have been? Probably 1963, 64. So way before most of you guys were even thought of. But that was the economy back then. But it was fun, and it gave you a lot of work ethic of what you want to do in life. I actually enjoyed it. I was with a lot of my buddies when we were doing that, so it wasn't a bad thing. Yeah, JC probably took a good nap last night. He probably had that soothing rain coming in last night because it's just drizzly raining up there. I hope he didn't get too wet getting all hooked up and everything this morning. Yeah. Well, that's the way to do it, Chris, is, that's the way to farm. I mean, so you cut pigweeds a lot. Yeah. It does build character. It really does. All that does. I think, most of the guys, a lot of the guys that are on the channels with us that enjoy tools and trucks and this kind of thing. You've had a background where you've learned some things. Not everybody, and some people are maybe late in the game learning these things, but it it's I feel like I've had a bigger and better part of my education when I was raised on a farm. Uh, my dad had us plowing way more than he should have probably my mother even she after dad passed away and she and I used to sit around and talk. Uh, she she used to say that she said, I knew you boys were plowing way more than you wanted to, but she said your dad always said I'm keeping them out of trouble. So during the summer, Dad would give every one of us chores. We used to plow with a walk behind tractor. We had the big tractors, but our corn was so dense back there. We used to plow corn, and this is the one part that I always hated. I was using a David Bradley walk behind tractor, and the corn stalks hit me in the face as a little kid, holding on to that tractor and getting hit by those corn stalks. And because it would just, that little tractor would pull back the corn stalks just enough, and then they would slap me in the face and the body and everything else. So I remember hating that as a kid, but we did it and we learned, and just one of the memories that you have and everything, and you learn to. Yeah, no, it wasn't a horse. Yeah, I did. I never plowed with a horse. My dad did. Now, my dad, that's what he plowed with when he came up. He didn't even have a gasoline engine, and that's what he used to tell me. He said, "Hey guys, I used to have to feed the horse and then plow with the horse, then unhitch the horse." He said, "Y'all got it made." Yeah, yeah, we were uptown with that David Bradley. That David Bradley, we had two or three of those little David Bradleys. It was a pretty neat little tractor. I mean, it was balanced good, had the engine out in front, and had the little round hood, and it was balanced pretty good. Daddy had gone through there and he'd found a couple of those and had all the implements and everything, so we could get out there and plow with it good. I mean, we used that to get our sweet potatoes up and everything else. Uh, well, we had an 8-in Ford too. We actually had a Ferguson. We had a Ford Ferguson is what we had, but it looked just like an 8-in. But we had that, and we had a case. Dad had a big case tractor. I don't know the model of it. And actually, my brother, I think one of my brothers still. One of my brothers still has the Ford Ferguson, and another one of my brothers still has the case. Well, Mike, you take care and everything. We'll try to be safe out here. We'll try to, yeah, that David Bradley that's what it was. It was a push hand clutch on that, and and if you wanted to ease it in, you just eased out the clutch until it grabbed. It had that flywheel, that external flywheel that that you could see turning all the time. Yeah, that was different. That's the way the case tractor was too. We used to use that external part of the flywheel, that came out, and we would put a big belt on that and use dad had a portable sawmill, and we'd hook that belt up to it, and use the sawmill He didn't have a big fancy one. We just had, it was just up on some 4x4s, and it really was a dangerous machine. That's, a lot of people got hurt on those old uh, sawmills like that. But that's the way you were back then. I mean, it's different. OSHA would never let you have it right nowadays if you tried to do it commercially, I guess. But it was one of those deals. But that's what you remember. You remember your highlights, I guess, of your youth like that and the old farming days. But it was a good time in my life. Uh, I think a lot of the base knowledge that I have came from that. I wish I had been smarter and tried to learn more as I was growing up. But that's the regret you always get, is the fact that you know you don't realize until you're older that you wish you had studied more of just normal things that you should have learned. I mean, I'm a young kid. I mean, when I was out slopping hogs, milking cows, and I was trying to get done. I was not trying to educate myself so much all the time on how to improve my skills and everything. Although, even though, boy, the rain's starting to come down a little bit out here. Hear it on the tin roof here. But even though we're doing that and we're learning better skills, you don't know the appreciation of it until you gotten older. I mean, I actually picked up more carpentry skills after I got away from home than I did when I was at home. And I wish I had learned more carpentry skills when I was younger. Then when you get older, now I love carpentry now. I like doing it. I mean, I'm out here doing it as we speak. My wife used to say, well, why don't you hire somebody to do this? And I keep telling her, certain things I know won't get done as well as I would do it. They wouldn't take the time to do it right, because 90% of some of the people, they're looking at it, well, I can make X amount of dollars if I get this and get it done fast. So they're not going to take the time to do some things that will really make it right. And I'm proud of this building that we're remodeling, because that's what I feel like we're doing on it, that we're remodeling it in a fashion that it's going to last a long time. Now, it'll outlast me, but hopefully my son and grandson will be able to take the benefits of it, and and they'll be able to, I hope this building lasts another 50 years. It's 50 years old now. It was built in '68. And of course, when I think about '68, I go, wow, this is a new building. But if I tell somebody something was built in '68, they think, wow, that's an old building. But I remember when this building was built new. This was the new. I was a junior or senior in high school when they opened this store up. So this to me is a new building. That's because of my age, and but I remember, and I told my wife, I said, in a way, we were able to restore this building, and even a lot of people in our town have sort of applauded the fact that I've taken a building. It was getting in disrepair a little bit. The people that owned it, the estate that owned it, didn't put the money in. You were born in the wrong decade. Well, no, I guess everybody. Carpentry's Ricky's thing. Okay. All right. Yeah, and that's what the problem you get sometimes with the Napa stores, Chris, is the fact that we are independent. And the boy that had this, I say boy, I went to high school with him. He's an older gentleman too, but he's a boy to me because he was 3 or 4 years younger than me. But the guy that had this Napa store in our local town here in Cherryville, that's what he was doing. He was letting it go downhill, downhill, downhill. And yeah, I enjoy carpentry too. I probably ought to do some. I probably ought to do some videos of my carpentry tools I bought, and I continually buy. I bought the new 18 volt Milwaukee saw, table saw. Boy, that is one fantastic little saw. I mean, if anybody has any of the Milwaukee tools, and especially the Carpentry Tools, that is fantastic. I never would have thought that I would love some battery operated carpentry tools, but I've got the 18 volt DeWalt chop saw. It's just the 8-inch. It's not the big 12, but I've got the Milwaukee table saw, and we have used the crap out of that thing. I actually got a big DeWalt. I mean, not DeWalt, Delta. I have a big Delta saw, big table saw. Back in the back, I have, the one that the Unisaw. I have one of those also. But this Milwaukee saw is so convenient, especially when you're doing remodel work. I mean, and it's precise. It's good. It's got a great table on it. It's got a couple of features you have to get used to them, I guess you might say, the lineup. But I found the accuracy of it is really, really good, and the table is really, really good. I mean, you could probably modify it and put a better. I say that. I sort of say you could put a better guide on it, but once you do that, I guess the small guide you could put a better one on it. But once you do that, you kind of take away from. I'm looking at it. That's the reason I'm turned away here, guys. I'm kind of looking at my saw. I'm out here in the middle. I'm got one of my little Ketter. I got these little Ketter desk tables and everything, and I like those. And then my table saw is about the same height, and I've been working on it. I'm reading it. Yeah, now see, that's the thing you're talking about. That is the tough part, and we are limiting ourselves on paint. Now paint is getting to be a skill, and it's really tough. And I don't even want to do we've got the biggest thing we're doing on paints. We have a guy that does powder coating, and we do his aerosol cans. We make up special aerosol cans, and I've got one boy that works for me that's really good at this, and he can do a good paint match. But it's tough. You can really mess up somebody's paint jobs, and I kind of steer away from that. We do everything, and we do paint, and then we tell people we're not paint specialists, and it takes some skills on that, and the old story, you can't sell faded paint, and that's what you get so many times. You want people coming in to match something, and that once you start matching a vehicle that's older, then you're asking for it a little bit, because if you're in a guessing game, is what you are. You can either go back to the code and put exactly what the code tells you to do, or it's hard to do, really hard to do. So a lot of body shops are actually getting their own paint systems. That's what they're doing around here, is they get their own paint computer and do their own mixing. And I don't even try to push the paint part of it. I do with our store. That's sort of secondary, and I tell the people straight up. I mean, we'll do the best we can do, but paint mixing and everything with all the situations you have with paint right now is really tough. Buick, okay, it has. Yeah, and that's what you get into. You've got, I guess the reason I'm saying this is, if I'm gonna sell a part, I want it to be an exact part. I don't want people, and even within the parts system, you'll hear people when you go up and they ask you, well, is your car 4-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive? Is it this, that, the other? I mean, there's a lot of different things that the manufacturers get out there and change just a little bit, even, internal parts for the motor or whatever, starters and alternators and everything else. I mean, they have to be almost exact what that model is. It's not like it was years ago when you could just say, oh yeah, I need a alternator for a 66 Chevrolet. Okay, here's one, boom, there it is. Nowadays, I mean, you've got to know the model, everything else. Same thing with the big trucks too. I mean, you never go into a Freightliner dealership or any of the other parts houses or even mine, and we have to have the last 6 digits of the serial number, because the build date is when it's important, when that vehicle is actually built, because the manufacturer may have changed something on that build date that he had on an exact kind of truck. In other words, he can have a Freightliner here and a Freightliner there, but if that build date is not within the parameters, then that part would be something different. And that's what you get into. And people don't realize that the serial number defines when it was built, and that should define what part was put on that particular one from the factory. And then that trickles down through the system and is kind of coded into the system. So they make sure that you got part XYZ-A or XYZ-B or whatever it may be, that you're not getting the wrong part, because they could have modified that, through shipments coming to them. They might have said, well, we're going to start changing that. Well, the only way you know of the change is to follow through on the serial number and the build date. And sometimes you can modify them. Sometimes the same part will work, but or the modification will work. But sometimes you'll get into that, and just because of the build date on the vehicle, it will change it enough that you can't swap the part. So we run into that with transmissions and different even turbos. I've had it happen with turbos and everything else. There's just enough difference about it that it won't work. And so those things that's the dynamics of a parts business and the trucking business, for that matter. I'm on both sides of it, guys, so I can defend both sides. I mean, I'm the customer, and I'm also the dealer in this respect, because with the Napa end of it, because I know exactly where people get aggravated with that, because I've gotten aggravated just like everybody else with that. Of course, that is also one reason that I got into the Napa business, is because I wanted a little more control, and I wanted to be able to. I think the control of it was more so. I know the control of it is definitely more than the money part of it, because it's not a. If y'all want to get rich, don't buy a Napa store. I can tell you that. If you want to have, we're hoping to get this into a better situation now that we're moving into a new store, and that we're able to offer more product. But it is not a get rich quick. It's a make a living slowly type business, I guess you might say. It's not a get rich quick business, and it takes a lot of time, effort, and patience with this store. And I've only had this one 1 year. Will be 1 year coming up in November, and it has tested my patience. It's tested definitely tested my billfold. My wife said, why did you wait to 67 years old and decide to buy you a money pit? So, but she's actually coming around a little bit. Well, hey, Walter, glad to see you in there. Last 6 digits of the VIN number. That's right. That's exactly what they're all going to ask for. They want the last 6 digits of the VIN number, and that gives them the build dates. That's what it's all about. It's just making sure that XYZ part was actually put on that particular vehicle on that date. And like I said, sometimes you can modify some things. I mean, it might be a similar part or something, but yeah, they want that to kind of reassure themselves that they have that particular part that has that same build date. Oh God, yeah, I know. Trust me, the parts books, I can't write them quick enough to keep them right. Yeah, yeah. All of your dealers want that last. And I used to think when I was young and naive, I thought it was nice supplement for my retirement. Yeah, I needed to not take away my retirement. Is what I've got to do. But we're enjoying it. I fuss about it, but I guess the biggest part is that we are spending so much money, with the new build and I bought out a couple of other stores too, and we're trying to get the inventory built up to what it should be. When you take something that's depleted all the way down, basically, JC, is like what you've done. I've taken something and basically I only had a frame. I didn't have the body. I didn't have the interior. I didn't have anything. I had maybe a rusty frame that I've had to clean up and try to build back into a vehicle. And that's about the best description of my Napa store as I bought it. I mean, I was able to get the franchise and a few other things, but when I came into the store that I bought last year, I basically bought a storefront with a lot of empty, dusty shelves because he had depleted the inventory down to literally almost nothing. And my first order, that the first monthly order I put in was like $85,000 just to get enough to have the bare minimum at that point. And my first bill from Napa, my first monthly bill was $85,000 just for that, and then I continually had to maintain, a good many monthly bills similar to that, and until I could make the store start turning some revenue, and it was tough. The accounts receivable were the pits on that store. So y'all, yeah, I don't know if y'all want to hear all this, but that's what I've been going through with this past year. And the store location was terrible too. I mean, the store location is the old store is a gravel parking lot. It's on a corner lot, but you can't get in and out. People want convenience. Now, this place I'm in now is very convenient. And like I said, it's an old Ford dealership, and we feel like the convenience and the huge parking lot that we have is going to be very good for everybody. And I think it's going to be. Did I see a little bit of lightning? Might hear a little bit of thunder in the background in a minute. I think I saw a flash of lightning just a second ago. But something's clicking there. Might just be my lights flickering. And if the power goes out, you'll see me go off the air. I believe that was my lights flickering just a little bit. I hope that the city of Cherryville won't lose power. We are getting windier. So if I suddenly go off the air, if my stream suddenly quits, then you'll know that I'm over here where it's getting windy. But the storm's been, it's progressing this way right now. The storm is getting a little bit more violent well, not violent, but it's windier. The rain's a little bit heavier. It's probably the heaviest rain that we've had in the past 3 or 4 days. And the rest of it's just been a steady, drizzly rain, but we're getting some rain pretty good. And yeah, and that's what I've got to do, JC. I can't sell an empty shelf, and I don't want to be next day Napa. That's what they were calling the old boy. Now, Dorman, you were talking about the Dorman. I don't know if you saw. I bought out this other store, and I got a wall full of Dorman. And I love my Dorman shelves. I don't like the shelves themselves because they're so heavy, and I guess they have to be because we got a lot of heavy bolts in them and everything. And they're not ball bearing drawers. They're just the old metal on metal drawers. If anybody's ever bought or seen the Dorman boxes, but I have, over the years, I've bought a couple other shops that had Dorman product, and then I bought this parts house out last week and he had a real good supply. He had, I think we inventoried it, and it was about $30,000 worth of just Norman products. So it's a good bit of bolts and nuts and everything else. Yeah, but that's what you get into with the parts and everything else. Well, I guess JC must be trucking right along. You must be trucking along right good if you're not having any issues with the truck, and it pulled the mountain good if you got over into Kentucky. So I guess I don't have to do a rescue. I told him I'd be in the backside if he had a problem with his Dodge. I'd come over and rescue the camper and everything. But JC put that truck back together better than he thought, I think. But it's good. He is cautious. He's like me, especially when I used to have a fifth wheel camper. Underneath the belly of it, I had tools galore underneath there too. I carried a full line of I had like an overhead. I had a toolbox that I think it was one of those big heavy plastic ones, but had the drawers and everything in it. I think a Cobalt toolbox or something, and I kept it one or two of those in there full of my sockets and my wrenches and everything you do. And then when you're going camping, you got to make sure have enough plumbing supplies too, because you'll get out somewhere and you'll need plumbing supplies. Plumbing and electrical supplies is what you end up getting out and needing sometimes. That's the way it was for me all the time. But yeah, well, that can happen. That can happen. That JC's truck's doing well. That's great. Yeah. Hey, so you know what I'm talking about is those big old heavy drawers. They're a little bit of a pain, and if you get some that's I've got a couple of them that are a little out of whack, and I feel like getting in there, and you kind of have to. I don't know if somebody pulled them out and dropped them or what they did, but you've got to. If you get the framework out of kilter, they can really be a pain in the butt. But there's nothing better than having the tools and everything. I hope I'm gonna have a good little hardware store in here in my parts store, because it's tough. I mean, just getting wood screws or metal screws or whatever you got there. And over the years, I've been good about collecting and doing any kind of buyout. Even before I bought my Napa store, I used to buy garages and stuff like that had tools and bolts and everything, and it's good to have. And that's what you got to do. And I was going over that with my guys at the Napa store yesterday. I have what they call a gondola that's got nothing but tractor parts on it, anything from an 8N or whatever. And a lot of my farmers, they love that little gondola I got, because I'll have a switch or a starter button or anything you might think of. I've been trying to carry those old tractor supplies, and so I tried. Yeah, that's what I've got. The tractor spinner. Basically, I've got. They're expensive to maintain. I'll tell you that. That one that we got, I think I had $5,000 worth of parts just on that spinner. Believe it or not, it's a pretty good size spinner. But when I put it in there, I think that darn thing cost me right at $5,000 to be able to supply everything. But it is sold good off of it, so I can't complain there. And that's what you got to maintain. You don't realize what will sell sometimes, and it's the good thing about it. It's sort of like eye candy for the farmer, because he'll come in there and go, "Oh, I need that," or "I need that," or I'll go ahead and fix that. Maybe it's something he's been putting off, and he sees that I carry it, and he'll grab it and go with it. So it's good eye candy having that out front for the farmers. Yeah, yeah. That we try our best to accommodate the farmers in our area, and we're pretty good. We're out here in the rural section of the county. I mean, we got Lincoln County, Cleveland County, and I'm in the northwest quadrant of Gaston County. And there's still a lot more farmers out here than there are. And if you get down toward Mecklenburg and all this, I'd be just selling car parts because there wouldn't be but a handful of farmers down there. Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of what you do, JC, and that's like you have to buy enough trucks. Excuse me, I'm gonna set up. I'm getting this chair for some reason I keep slouching down further and further, so I have to I kind of have to watch myself. Well, I guess did Miss Smith get to go to all the things she wants to see in Tennessee? If not, y'all make another trip. Now, y'all need to get over to the North Carolina side. There's plenty of nice places to go see in North Carolina. And I don't know if y'all been over to Asheville, over to Biltmore House. You need to take her over to Biltmore House. And that's a beautiful place, is the Biltmore House. If you want to see what the rich people really live like, I mean, that's the Vanderbilts and everything that they came down in the early 1900s and built that castle, basically. I mean, it's something. Of course, most people have seen the Biltmore House on TV. A lot of movies have been shot up there, things like that. But that's a beautiful place if you've never been to the Biltmore House. Yep, I'm trying to buy up everything I can on that, Chris. To buy out some of these older parts stores that have gone out of businesses. I think Bowden. I'm doing pretty good with that. I have bought out 3 parts stores. I didn't get the majority of everything on all of them, but there was one. I've gotten 2 in Kings Mountain, which is an adjacent town. I bought a bunch of items from one about a year and a half ago. Actually, before I even bought the parts business, had I known that I was going to get the Napa store in Jerry, I would have bought up way more. Guys, I don't know if you can see it. It's getting more violent out back. The rain's, can you see those bands of rain? I don't know if you can see it on the screen. I believe I'll step up and show you what my weather's doing. Getting them. I don't know if you can see it or not. It's some of the hardest rain we've had in a long time. I'm not going to step outside. I'll ruin my computer if I do. But the rain's coming down pretty good over here right now. It's some of the heaviest rain that we've had. I'll show you some of my handiwork from last night. We that's pegboard walls. I don't know if I get up close enough you can see. That's pegboard. We've got the pegboard all the way across, all the way around the perimeter here. I think make you a big blur. My wife and I were working with it the other night, and right. Well, I got the parts. I got to get all the interior looking good. Actually, I'll show you. Chris talking about needing the parts. I actually have some hung up for demonstration purposes over here. On the other side, let me walk across here. So you will see. Ta-da! There's a couple of parts hung up that you can see. But we've got, as you can walk around here, you see we've got most of that up. Up there where you see the pink, now we're going to put the corrugated metal that's like the outside. We decided Well, for a couple of reasons, because of the way we would have to put too much infrastructure underneath it to make anything else look good up there. So what we're going to do is put the corrugated metal all the way across that looks similar to what we got on the outside. Well, it would be the same metal basically. And then here's what I've been on the last couple of days, scaffolding up and down and up and down. Make my wife push me around on that. But that's what we've been up against here. We're trying to get all this looking good. It's a pretty good size area. This is, I think it's about, let me count the panels here. What I got, 1, 2, 4. Okay, it's about 50 by 50, I would say this showroom is. Just by counting the panels there. That's right, Mrs. Smith. Now you come on down to the North Carolina side. And me and Mrs. Jones will show you some things. We'll take y'all out and about, and y'all can we'll take you on a good trip of North Carolina and send you on some sites to see. I mean, or at least point you in the right direction if we can't do it ourselves. Let me set my computer back down here if I can. Yeah, there's a lot of nice North Carolina spots. Oh, nice. A lot of, if you want to see historical sites and everything else, we've got a lot. Let me plug my, don't want to run out of juice here. Now that, I think you could enjoy it. Wheels Through Time, yeah, that's another one for JC would like that over there. It's over there at Maggie Valley, and Maggie Valley is. It had you gone through Cherokee, JC. That's so if you're going on to the North Carolina side from Cherokee, then you can go from Cherokee on over to Maggie Valley, or you can actually go down I-40 and then cut off and go down to Maggie Valley too. It's off the road. They used to have Ghost Town in the Sky, and they actually tried to open it back up. And it was back in the day before they had all the theme parks. It was a pretty neat theme park. As a kid, I went up there, and when I was dating my wife and everything, my dad took us up there to Ghost Town in the Sky, and it was crowded. It had an incline railroad and everything else. That unfortunately, that's one that saw it went downhill, and the older lady that actually owned it reopened it a few years ago. I went up there, and my wife and I even met with her, had some pictures made with her. And I don't know if she's passed away or not. She was in her 90s, and she popped a several $1 million back into that, trying to get it restored, and it didn't get restored completely. I think it may have gone on with something else. Yeah, now Ruby Falls. Yeah, when you get on, yeah, Ruby Falls over at Chattanooga. Yeah, I like that too. Now that's down below where JC was the other day. Had he gone on down to Chattanooga, Tennessee. Now Ruby Falls is really pretty over there. I suggest anybody seeing that. Now Rock City is a different thing. You're going to see a lot. I mean, that used to be painted on every barn in the Southeast, I believe. Would see Rock City. You would see, when I was growing up as a kid, you would see a ton of people's barns. And I read the history on that. The guy that they had hired to do promotions, he would go around and he would paint See Rock City on the side of these people's barns. And what he would do, he'd find a farmer that his barn needed painting. So that was the deal. I'm going to paint your barn or paint the roof or whatever, but I'm going to put this advertisement on the side of it. Well, the farmer's going, well, heck, I'm going to get a free paint job and everything else. So yeah, go for it. And that man painted up more barns, I think, in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and everything else that you can think of. And and he'd put the Ruby Falls in some of it too, because they were back to back. I think maybe were owned by the same people at one time, but you forever. And you can even see old postcards and everything down here that say "See Rock City," and that's what that was all about. And Rock City's okay if you just want to see that, but Ruby Falls is pretty. Now that's interesting there. And when you get inside that one part and you actually see the big that waterfall, gosh, I don't know how it looks like it's 10 stories high inside the mountain, and they got it all lit up and everything. It's really pretty. That's a pretty sight to see there. But getting over to where you see the falls, it's little, you got to walk by all these little trails on the interior of that cave, and it's something. But that's pretty neat. Yeah, all the I like seeing all these. Oh, you had a guy came through and painted flags on top of your buildings. Well, that's cool. Yeah, free paint. Free paint is free paint. I don't care who you are. Unless you're totally objectionable to it. The skinny man's cave. Yeah. Well, I about couldn't get through it. Yeah. We went to that a few years ago, but my wife and family used to go up there when they were young, and they always had pictures of that. And so my wife and I and my mother-in-law, took my mother-in-law with us, and we went all up to Rock City and Ruby Falls and everything several years ago. And it's a very interesting place. And it's the old type of attraction that you saw in the 50s and 60s when we didn't have all the major, Carowinds and all the theme parks and Six Flags and all that. That's what you would see that would be your roadside attraction, I guess you might say. And it's nostalgic for me. I like it because it's nostalgic, because it was the crazy thing to do. And that's like up here in this area in North Carolina, they got Tweetsie Railroad, which is good. It's a railroad that goes around the mountain. It's pretty neat, and it's using the old coal-fired steam engine railroads, and it's pretty neat. And that's been going on in Boone, North Carolina for, gosh, I want to say 60 years probably. It's well maintained and everything. It's a nice place to see. So that's the way it gets on this kind of stuff. But I know I'm trying to see. Oh, just your building. Okay. Well, I noticed you got your GMC running the other day, Chris. Did you get it running good enough to get it down the road? And you get some of those codes off of it? I know that you were showing it that the codes were popping up on you. Oh, you put 60 miles on it. Well, that's good. Oh, so you're well, hey, Greg, how are you doing this morning? Yeah. So you're got an auction next week. I believe I got one. Well, they had one Saturday that I don't think many people they probably, I don't know if they actually had it or not because of all the weather that was in this area. The service and the 4x4 light. Yeah. Hey, trucking lady, how are you doing this morning? Oh, you got an auction to go to today? Well, that's good. Yeah, there's a Napa. There's actually a guy that had a Napa Auto Service Center. His shop, he's retiring and he's going out of business over about a town about 30 or 40 miles away from here. And I'm gonna go over and check out his shop and maybe be able to buy some things for my when I open up my Napa Auto Service Center. So I'm going to try to catch that sale if my wife will let me. I'm going to try to catch that in a few weeks and see if I can come up with some real deals, as they say. Yeah, well, that's the way it goes. Well, JC, I hope we've been entertaining to you a little bit on this trip up through Kentucky. And Miss Smith, I know Miss she's probably able to do the typing while JC's driving. Whereas JC's an ambidextrous type guy. I've seen him type away by himself and do things on his phone pretty long time. Well, guys, I've been on here about an hour and 15 minutes, and my voice is about to go. I get my old scratchy voice, so I'm gonna get off. I've really enjoyed talking with everybody this morning. The storm's getting a little more violent out here, so I'm gonna get off before we lose power or whatever. And I've enjoyed it. The ones that maybe got in late, if you want, I'll leave it up, and you can go back in there and see what brilliant things that we came up with. But I'm gonna get off of here this morning and try to get some work back done. My wife wants to. We've got to go to Home Depot and get a couple things for some suspended ceiling and a few things. But all right, JC, you be safe going the rest of the way up through there. Stop in and see Junkie if you have time. Make sure he hadn't flipped something over lately. All right, you take care. Chris, you take care. Truck driving lady, you take care. All the rest of you, Greg, so on. Anybody else that's dropped in, I appreciate you dropping in this morning. And I'm gonna go ahead and get off of here and try to get some things done for the rest of the day. We'll see you guys.